Get started. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Adoption of agenda. It is recommended that the agenda of the November 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be approved with one amendment to personnel.
Motion. Second.
Vote. Approval of minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the October 10th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be approved as presented. Motion.
Second.
Vote. Statements or questions from the public?
No public, no statements.
There are none. Administrative recommendations, claims. It is recommended that prepaid and October claims numbered 102055 through 102268 be approved as presented.
Motion. Second.
Vote. Personnel, it is recommended that Michelle Clark be hired as a full-time custodian at Southeast Fountain Elementary School.
Michelle's been working as a part-time custodian in our elementary school, and so we're happy that we can have her expand her role.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that Rachel Mujica be hired as a bus driver for Southeast Fountain School Corporation.
Motion.
Second.
We got Scott, motion, Jill, second. Vote. It is recommended that the termination of 2 employees as discussed in executive session be approved as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. Quotes. It is recommended that the quote from Alley Electrical in the amount of $15,831.05 be approved as presented.
This was the finalization from the air system that we put for the welding and the electrical work that had to be done. So this is that portion of that project.
Motion. Second.
Vote. Other business. It is recommended that the updated board meeting dates documented be approved to reflect meeting dates for both regular school board meetings and also discussion meetings for the remainder of the 24-25 school year.
And again, I followed our calendar, our board policy as far as we usually meet on the second Thursday unless it falls on the 9th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, and we move it back to the 3rd.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the donation from Central Indiana Truck Equipment Corporation in the amount of $1,000 be approved as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the donation from the Western Indiana Community Foundation in the amount of $3,000 be approved as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the National Honor Society to sell candy bars be approved as presented.
These are the same candy bars that in the past our Spanish club sold, and now that we no longer have Miss Kay, they would like to take over selling them.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the National Honor Society to sell laundry soap be approved as presented.
Again, their goal with this is to earn money to cover the dues that they have to pay for National Honor Society and their projects that they do.
Motion.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the Fountain Central High School After Prom Committee to sell Texas Roadhouse rolls and/or cinnamon rolls be approved as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the Fountain Central High School After Prom Committee to sell ice cream sundaes be approved as presented.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the FCHS After Prom Committee to host the three-point shootout at home varsity basketball games be approved as presented.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the fundraiser request from the FCHS After Prom Committee to host a 50-50 raffle at home varsity basketball games be approved as presented.
And we have requested from the Indiana Gaming Association for approval for that as well.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the school resource officer management agreement be approved as presented.
This is each year, one of our SROs, Officer Rainey, is a cooperative employee between the county and us. So this MOU spells out when he works for us, when he works for the county. And
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the maximum number of sick/personal leave days accumulated for non-certified employees be changed to reflect that of certified employees,
currently,
182 days.
non-certified staff, depending on what their position is, they have a different number of maximum days. And what that encourages is those employees who have worked for us for a while and can't get any more days, then they're going to take those days off. It just encourages people to take days off. If we keep those days and just let them accumulate, and then they have a chronic illness or something down the line, then we're still honoring those long-term employees.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that if and/or when an employee of Southeast Fountain School Corporation changes position within the district, the sick or personal leave days that the employee has accumulated are transferred to their new position in full. Employees will maintain the same number of accumulated days.
Again, we want to see our staff step up and take on more responsibilities and get new positions. And without this, we're encouraging them not to do that if they're going to lose the days that they made in this position and have to start back over at zero.
Motion. Second.
Vote. It is recommended that a one-time stipend for all regular employees who do not receive a TAG grant be approved as presented.
And this stipend, we have carefully budgeted and looked in how we can do this to honor all of our staff. Indiana State provides a TAG grant for teachers who were evaluated by us last spring and found to be effective or highly effective. So we want to honor other employees in our district who also work just as hard but do not fall under that TAG grant.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that a 2% pay increase for non-certified staff beginning in January 2025 be approved as presented.
Again, I've worked with our treasurer and looking at where we're at and what that would cost the district to do that. And we feel that that's a fair increase without putting the district into jeopardy.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. It is recommended that the 2025-2026 Southeast Fountain School Corporation school calendar be approved as presented.
The calendar presented a bit of challenge this year because with leap year and with every year, it requires people to come back to school earlier. And so to still get our 180 days in and to still graduate on the Friday before Memorial Day and not have to come back after Memorial Day, it took a lot of work. The proposed calendar that I'm asking you to vote on would result in some changes at the beginning of the year. Our new teachers would start on a Wednesday instead of a Friday. All staff would come back then on that Thursday and open house that night. And then that Friday, August 8th, would be the optional workday. Students would then begin on the 11th, which is a Monday. Throughout the year, the calendar pretty much is very comparable to what we have right now. We do have 3 flex days built in case of snow here in Indiana. Those flex days are January 19th, February 16th, and March 13th. April 3rd. Those 3 flex days, if we have to use them, may be able to be used as e-learning, at least 2 of them, because that would be Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, and Good Friday. So we hope that we don't have to be in person that day. Also, on March 13th is built in, that's the day before spring break, and that was built in as a professional learning / e-learning day so that we can still educate those students who have already left for vacation. The end of the year also to get those 180 days in and to be finished before Memorial Day. The last student day has typically been a Wednesday. This year it would be Thursday, the 21st. The last staff day would be Friday, the 22nd, and graduation would still be that evening. But we feel that the things that we do with the staff on that Friday morning would not interfere with the gym being set up for graduation that night. But by doing this, it keeps us within the dates we have before. If we started earlier and mirrored this year's calendar, it would end up our secretaries having to come back really early in July. And we also want to honor them that they get the break that they need. So.
Motion.
Second.
Vote. Now, Southeast Fountain School Corporation projects and strategic plan update from Josh Davenport.
So I'll be brief. November 1st, we had the November draw from the GO bond that went to MCOR. That was, I think Cindy got it maybe this week, so it wasn't exactly November 1st, but I think we're right on schedule with those draws. There are 2 left that are going to come from the GO bond to go to MCOR, one in December and one in January. And that should finish up their MCOR's part of the pool project. Right now, almost all the media boxing is complete, so a lot of that dust that's happening in the pool area, the locker rooms, that back hallway, that cleanup can start. I did confirm with them that all that'll be cleaned up before the first home boys basketball game so that our community members can access that back door there by the pool and get into the games. The trusses have the first coat of paint on them, so if there's been a smell in the building, specifically in the gym or cafeteria, they said as the new coats go on, it should not smell like paint near as badly, so.
That's pretty strong last night.
Yes, so there's not a lot we can do about that, but I think the worst of it's over.
Smell of progress.
The smell of progress, yeah. Ceiling and walls scheduled to be completed by the end of the year, like I said there, in December and January. And then the next steps for the pool, once the ceiling and walls are done, we're gonna form a committee to discuss logistics of the pool deck itself, how we're gonna finish that. It's gonna be everything from the tiles, the seating in there, the timing system, things like that, so. Certainly, I don't want to be the only one making those decisions, so we're gonna get a committee together, people that are involved in the pool and the swim program, so I think it would be a good thing. So that's it as far as projects. The strategic plan, I'm gonna focus on pillar 2 a little bit tonight, with the help of Kelly. So just briefly, some of the indicators that were mentioned under the academic performance and programming. We did restructure PLC a little bit at the high school. I'm not gonna go too much into depth in that, but we made it more intentional, especially for our core subjects, to be really focused on instruction in the classroom, collaboration amongst themselves. So I like the direction that the high school is going with their PLC. The elementary school, we're kind of in 2 separate places right now. They have established their PLC, and it's running very, very well. So they're now more focused on meaningful assessments here at the elementary school. How can those assessments really, like I said, be intentional and focus on the standards that the students will be learning. The last part of this is the pre-K programming. That was also an indicator, and Kelly's got an update on that. I'm gonna let her share.
So that was a pretty poignant conversation that we had when we first got together to draft Pillar 2 and the subcommittee that worked with that, just because as students come into us in kindergarten, every year we start to see some gaps we didn't see the year before. And so what can we do to make sure our children are coming in ready to learn at a kindergarten level? So we do have a preschool advisory board that is comprised of staff and faculty within our building, everyone from our preschool consultant to preschool staff, kindergarten staff, speech and language, just because they all have a different perspective on that. And last year, we really worked on some vertical articulation of what are kindergarten standards that students will be required to learn, what can preschool do to meet those, what is preschool required to do right now, just to make sure there were expectations matched for how those students should come in. And this year, the committee really wants to expand to not just include our preschool, but representatives from area preschools as well, because we have 4 or 5 besides us that feed into the school, as well as locating those children that don't attend preschool, and how can we get education into their hands prior to walking into our doors. So the state has put out a couple of pieces here that we're going to be looking at as a committee next week. One of those is the kindergarten transition model. And so this is really kind of a self-reflection survey for us and our programming of what are we currently doing with our students and what can we be doing. A big piece of this is that family engagement, so making school accessible and making, if it's curriculum or learning standards or even, resources along the lines of health and mental wellness to our students as they come into their families. And they've also put out this transition toolkit. So this is more of once you've done the self-assessment, here are steps and resources that you can take as a team, again, just to bolster your programming. So it's really our goal just to make sure as our kindergartners come in, they're ready. I feel every year more and more is put on them. So things that 10 years ago our students had to do, they're doing that now in preschool, and so everything kind of shifts down, unfortunately. So, we see a pretty wide range of students when they walk in. So how can we kind of close that gap so that they're not always behind as they go through school?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's just roll right into the elementary report.
Yeah, not too much on those lines anymore, but I do have some individuals and groups I do want to recognize. Last Friday, the Veterans Day program, I'm sure Mr. Wolf will thank Molly Frazee, but as always, the program was wonderful. On our end, I want to thank, Mrs. Farthing, Mrs. Sillery for all of their work with our singers, as well as our 4th grade team and the American Legion for putting on another wonderful flag education program for our students.
as well as our winners, Branson Wolf and Kidley Bertolino, as they go on to the state level in that essay contest. So always makes us really, really proud. Actually, just this evening, Frankie Swanson, one of our speech language pathologists, put on a clinic for our parents in the life skills program. All of those students work on what are called AAC devices. So students who are nonverbal, it's an iPad, that they use this as a communication tool. And so she brought in families and a rep from the LAMP company in order for families to learn how their students are using it at school, how they can get funding to get an iPad at home, and then how they can use that with their students. So Frankie's been doing a great job. Kids have come around recently before Halloween with pumpkin grams. It was a requirement that they had to speak to us using that AAC device, and it's just been phenomenal to watch those students, be gifted with words. So kudos to her and to Mass Networks and Blair Lynn Fessy down in Life Skills for that. Tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and pre-thank the PTO. I know we're going to have a great goodies with grands with our first, third, and fourth graders, and then next week with the remainder of the grades. We see hundreds of smiling faces come in the door. It's a whirlwind of an hour. It's always well appreciated and well received. And then lastly, a big good luck to our Spell Bowl team. They go to West Lafayette on Monday. I am proctoring, hopefully not proctoring West Lafayette. I proctored them last year and have never felt so silly in my life. But we wish them a lot of luck. They've been working very hard. So again, Mrs. Sillery and Kayla Grubbs have sponsored that.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
High school report.
Last month, we reported that Fountain Central had earned a place on the AP School Honor Roll for the 23-24 school year. We'd like to follow up on that report with some additional information about our AP performance from last year. As we are already aware, FCHS is in its third year partnering with the University of Notre Dame as part of the AP TIP program. This program provides professional development and mentorship to our AP teachers, as well as additional learning opportunities for our students to take part in. In addition, the university incentivizes both student and teacher performance through monetary awards, and we're proud to report that our students earned a total of 45 qualifying scores of 3 or higher on their exams last year, which resulted in $4,500 being awarded to the students and another $2,500 being awarded to our AP teachers. So big congratulations goes out to those students and teachers as well. And then a thank you to the AP TIP and Notre Dame programs for providing the opportunity for our schools in our state. And then like Mrs. Morgan alluded to, we do have a huge thank you to Molly Frazee for organizing the Veterans Day program last week. It's just fantastic as always. So we did receive an email from a community member, and we wanted to share that out tonight. That community member was Michelle Fischerow, and here's what she had to say about the program, and which I think is a big reflection just in general from what we've heard from the community as a whole. I just wanted to take a quick moment to brag on the outstanding behavior of your students at the Veterans Day program this morning. I was always amazed and proud of their behavior at different programs and events during the years I was teaching. I think now that I'm coming as a community member, I'm even more impressed and proud of the respect and kindness that our students display. You as administrators and your staff are doing amazing work in teaching, as well as modeling the most important skills of respect, integrity, and kindness. And it was shown and shared by your students this morning. Be proud and keep the faith. We have a bright future in our little community, and thanks for all you do to contribute to the school and community. And I don't think I could probably say that any better. That it was a fantastic show, and our kids were very, very respectful of the members there. It was just, and again, Molly Frazee, she just did a fantastic job. So thank you for Michelle for extending that out and giving us that confidence for you.
Yep. Very good. Now we've got the student report. We've got Bryson Davis, our senior representative, and Lydia Perkins, our junior representative. Stage is yours.
Last night, the Fall Sports Awards banquet was held in the cafeteria. There were 20 student athletes, recognized as all bi-county and or all WRC award winners, which I thought was pretty sweet. There were 63 student athletes who received the Phil Rash Scholar Athlete Award. And there were 3 student athletes who were presented with their athletic jackets. Congratulations to senior athlete Braylee Hoagland on being named the Fall Mustang Club Scholarship Award winner. And a big thanks goes out to all the student athletes and coaches representing our school this fall sports season. And a thank you needs to go out to Mr. Good and Mrs. Pyle for their work throughout the year and for organizing a wonderful event for our athletes and families yesterday.
FCHS is proud to be taking part in the first ever IHSAA Girls Wrestling State Tournament this year. We have 10 student athletes participating in this program, me included. And the team's first competition took place this past Saturday at Park Heritage. And our team finished 3rd overall in the competition, and all of our girl wrestlers that wrestled on Saturday finished in the top 5 of their weight classes. Congratulations and thank you goes out to all the coaches and student athletes who are participating in this new program as representatives of our school. Mr. Deal is doing an awesome job coaching the girls team, and I absolutely love being a part of it. We also would like to wish all of our student athletes the best of luck as our winter sports season gets into full swing.
And the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm inventing an air freshener that works based off of mind control. It makes sense if you think about it.
Moving on. Our spotlight tonight is going to be Aramark in the educational partnership. We've got Elizabeth Zeigenhorn.
You can call me
and
Beth.
Beth and Natalie Turner.
Hi, guys. Now, I've been in a lot of classrooms this week, and so I'm going to try to rein in what I'm going to call my camp counselor voice, because I was a camp counselor for 4 years growing up. I also used to teach horseback riding, and I am a yoga instructor technically, but I'm out of practice.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Are we ready to taste some things?
Sure.
This is just fun pictures and things for you to look at things we've been doing over the last month. We've been doing apple education, which I think you guys would have seen in my last printout that I did. And this past week, we've been celebrating Pumpkin Week. So to celebrate Pumpkin Week, we did squash education in the classroom. And then we did some pumpkin tastings. What you're going to get, oh, did you pass that? Okay, good. We're doing apple tasting first. We only did 3 apples this time, sorry guys. When I was trying to get my name. All right, there you go. You guys can share.
I think I have the perfect looking out. Look at that. Sorry. Nice guy. Not perfect. Not perfect.
Here's going to show you our cute little apple display. We had a display for every classroom, and we lined up the apples in a container so that way they can see all the color variations. Everybody's welcome to taste. We have enough. We made sure of that. So, these are not as pretty. I elevated mine into squash education, you'll be able to tell. But since it was my first time, this was just something I came up with on my own. I was like, I'd like to go in a classroom and teach kids more about food, more about fruits and vegetables. So let's just give it a whirl. And yeah, my posters aren't as pretty, but the process that came out of it was really cool. And the kids were totally engaged and into Apple Week. So the very first apple I want to talk about is the Granny Smith apple, as you can see. And I always say, like, who's had a Granny Smith apple before? Or who's seen this in a board? Me, I've seen it, you know. And the Granny Smith apple is actually from Australia, and it was found in 1868, just randomly growing in somebody's backyard. And she's like, what is this? Is this a fruit? And her name was Marie Anna Smith. She had a lot of grandchildren, so everyone started to call her Granny Smith, even her neighbors along the block. So that's how the apple became known as the Granny Smith apple. It is the most sour of the apples that you are going to taste today. It has a very tart flavor, and they don't know what the word tart is. So I have to explain sour, and I'm like, does it remind you of a Skittle or like a sour candy? They're like, yeah, it reminds me of that. So they enjoyed that. The next apple you're going to try is the Red Delicious. There were 5 apples total that we tried, or 6, maybe we did 6, that we tried. And one of them, I don't have it today and I wish I did, was a Cosmic Crisp apple. And it's only been around for 5 years. And that's how long you've been able to actually purchase it. What's cool about the Cosmic Crisp, I'll just go ahead and tell you about this. is I introduced cross-pollination to the kids. And so they actually got to taste a Honeycrisp apple first. And the Honeycrisp apple is one of the apples that is cross-pollinated to make the Cosmic Crisp apple. And the Cosmic Crisp apple, which I don't have today unfortunately, has a lot of yellow speckles on the outside of it. And that's where it got its like starburst kind of name from. But anyway, the Honeycrisp apple is the state apple for Minnesota. And so I like to bring that up because I say, does anybody know what the state fruit of Indiana is? And none of the classes did. And I was like, well, it's an apple, which is why we're celebrating Apple Week. And let's draw attention to it. And they were like, I didn't know that. You know, a lot of excitement around that. And they'd say whether they liked it or whether they didn't. One thing I do want to point out about the Red Delicious is that it's in the shape of a heart. They also loved this fact. That was one thing that they specifically had on the Red Delicious website. It was like, we like to emphasize it's heart shaped. And this was originally actually called the Hawkeye apple. It was found in Peru, Iowa in 18 something, I can't remember right now. So, yeah, that's apple tasting. What do we think? Which is our favorite apple?
Honeycrisp.
Honeycrisp.
Yeah.
I like the Granny Smith, red Granny Smith.
As you pay attention to your score sheet, you have the option to do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And Honeycrisp was everybody's favorite?
I like Granny Smith.
I drew a heart around the Granny Smith.
I like the Red Delicious.
Because I like it so much.
Yeah. The Red Delicious is a nice happy medium apple, which is why it does so well. And actually for 30 years on the market, it was the most popular item sold in all of grocery states across the United States. It wasn't until the 1980s when the Fuji apple was introduced that it took over in popularity.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
After you did these, did you notice by chance as kids went through, were they more interested in
Yes,
getting an apple and trying fruit and?
yes. Actually, they wanted more whole apples. And then we started making an attempt to slice fresh apples more. We were buying like the bagged apples, a little bit more convenient. And like, we just put that out the window. I'm like, no, we're going to start slicing apples here. Let's give them fresh sliced apples. Not that the ones in the bag are fresh, you know what I mean, but fresh cut that morning. And we're doing Fuji apples. This week we've got Golden Delicious. So they've got like more variety and different color variations. And I had on the food line that week, Granny Smith, Red Delicious. I think we had Fuji left over. We actually made homemade applesauce. Natasha and I did. It took us about 2 days to go through like 6 cases of apples.
There's a picture
For
of that.
both schools, yeah. And we did that with Red Delicious apples. And that was a crowd pleaser, but they weren't sure about it at first. Just because of the color not being their usual that they wanted to see, but once they tasted it, they were like, oh man, this is so good. So that was cool to do.
And overall, what was the favorite fresh foods?
It was between the Granny Smith, which was a surprise to me, and the Fuji. And I will tell you this fun fact about a Fuji, that if you keep a Fuji apple in your fridge, it will last up to an entire year, which is different from most apples. They don't last longer than 3 to 6 weeks max, but a Fuji will last an entire year. So, yeah, good fun fact. Who wants to taste and learn some squash stuff? Okay. No, don't knock it to you. Okay. You can look at it and then make a game time decision. Okay. I think you'll like option 3 though. All right. So when I introduced squash education, I kind of said, did we know that it's pumpkin week? And they say yes or no. And I say, and did we know that a pumpkin is actually a squash? What, a squash? That was the response I often got. And I say, and squash is technically a fruit. Did we know that? And a lot of kids actually knew that because of the seeds inside of it. Yeah. So I focused primarily on this is an acorn squash. Do we see the coloration of an acorn squash? If it's called an acorn squash, why do we think it has that name? It's shaped like an acorn. Yes, that's how it got its name. And then we go through the list. Butternut is simply named because it has a buttery texture after it's cooked. Butter smooth is butter. It has a nutty flavor. It's actually the sweetest of the winter squash varieties. I focused on winter squash because there's a lot of squash in general. So I focused on the winter squash with them. Oh, sorry, forgot to mention, the very first squash was found in Mexico. And they would say, Mexico, and then I'd say, everybody say Mexico.
Mexico.
So I could get them to retain information. And so then I'd say, and it was found 8,000 years ago. I'd say, everybody say 8,000, and they'd say 8,000. And so once we got to the end of the class, I could say, now where was the first squash from? Mexico, and they jump in again. But it was fun to have like that live interaction with them, and it helped them create that memory moment. So I do want to mention the carnival squash down here because it's the prettiest one. Let's be real about it. And then the sweet dumpling squash is how I introduced cross-pollination, because it's actually the sweet dumpling and the acorn squash that created the carnival squash. And so they could see the coloration from both of these go into this. And so that was fun. And a lot of students understood that bees were what helped create cross-pollination. So that's nice. Our students have a little bit of awareness there, even if they're not sure. And then I would mention the pie pumpkin. I'm like, okay, this is where we get into the tasting part. And so what we have for tasting, I wanted students to have an understanding of all the parts of the pumpkin. And I would lead with, you can eat every single part of the pumpkin. You can eat the seeds. You can eat the insides. You can eat the stem. You can eat the vine. You can eat the flower that grows on the vine that helps the pumpkin grow. And they were like, what? And so I offered 2 different seeds. The white seed that we're used to seeing in a Halloween pumpkin, which they're used to seeing from carving. And then I offered a green seed because I could talk about its name being pepita, and that being the Spanish word for pumpkin seed. And then I could say, so pepita is a Spanish word. Where do we think that word comes from? And they would say, Mexico. Yes, it's all full circle. Squash is from Mexico. Yes. And so we'd take a moment, I'd have them taste, they'd decide if they liked it. A lot of students today were saying, it tastes like popcorn. That's what I was getting on the white seeds.
I agree.
I love them all. It's chewy, like chewy popcorn. I love pumpkin seeds.
Get in there, Scott. Quinn. And then I have a little blanket for it. I ended up not walking around with this as much, but if I wanted to talk about the process, we carve the pumpkin, right? We get all the gook and the seeds out, and then we roast it in the oven, and then we peel the skin off. I'm on the wrong side. Peel the skin, and the next part where we try to puree is after we put it in a blender so it's nice and smooth. And this is the purest form of the pumpkin. So yes, it doesn't have cinnamon or sugar or all the things, but I wanted them to understand where the flavor of pumpkin came from. And this is where all the silly faces and all came from. But then some kids were like, I actually like it. And yes, we actually got these from real pumpkins. We made this ourselves. We roasted it ourselves. Ooh. You like it?
Spice it up a little bit, yeah.
It's all okay. Every answer is acceptable. You said that too. And part of it is like, just thank you for trying it, And then we say the best for last. What?
I've actually never given
The pumpkin seeds, we slice them. It did help. We should have maybe added some into the puree, but I do like that we stuck to the natural form. We saved the best for last. I gave everybody some pumpkin bread, so that way they could try and link the flavor of the puree to the bread. And they were like, yeah, of course, they loved that. Thank you. We served this pumpkin bread actually for breakfast on Monday. And so some of them were like.
What can you do?
Can't do it.
What's wrong?
It's like I put it in my mouth, I don't like it. It's really weird.
Maybe makes me sad about chocolate.
Can't do pumpkin.
And so I liked to end each class, I'd say, okay, if you learned something today or you have something you'd like to share or question you'd like to ask, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. And they'd raise their hands and they'd ask all kinds of questions, but I loved that they actually they really heard me and they said like, I learned that bees helped make a new plant. And they'd say, I learned squash is from Mexico. I learned a pumpkin is from Mexico. And even if it wasn't exactly perfect, like they were absorbing it. You know, they were hearing me. And I'd say like, do we like tasting new things? Yes. I say, okay, well, we're going to do some more education in the winter, like around February. So if you want us to come back, yes, please come back. So
What grades were you doing this?
we're doing all elementary. So
Okay.
anybody that wants to participate, which is why I've got so much information on the squash board, because I have to elevate it more for a fifth grade student who can retain more. And then we have to scale it back a lot for kindergarten. But they're just as into it. I talked to a first grade today and they understood cross-pollination when we talked about it. You know,
Future chefs,
Mhm.
future chefs.
Yeah.
You know,
so
you're,
kids can retain a lot more information when you just give it the option to deliver it to them, you know? So it's been really fun. The kids are great. What do we think? Do we like the tasting?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to get kids to try things that
That's a good point.
they try. Because even some of us here tried some things that we probably, if it were on the table, we would pass it around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My only question is,
Yeah.
what are you gonna feed us next month?
I hope it's chocolate month.
Someone was like, can you just do this
I was thinking- Banana nut bread.
Bacon.
We need to have bacon.
Maybe pumpkin pie.
Yeah, absolutely. Pumpkin pie.
An opportunity to do Fisher Farms.
What do you call some?
Ooh.
So we were thinking banana nut bread,
This
pumpkin
is just gonna
pie.
be a new regular thing on our
Just,
agenda.
just put
You guys
this
are
on
no
the
longer
agenda.
a spotlight, you're in every month.
I love doing this, so I mean, yeah.
I will also put in a
Welcome
little
back
plug for them too, is that, a lot of our apples, when we, source them, we purchase local too. So some of the apples, I'm not saying tonight you did, but, a lot of the apples that we serve come from like Garwood Farms up in LaFleur, Indiana. So we are diving in heavily to the farm to school program, and our vendors have been just absolutely wonderful to work with us to source those products and everything. So, apples is one of them. The beef that we're serving in our cafeteria is also from Fisher Farms, which is the local farm in Jasper, Indiana. Been a great partner of ours to work through that program. So as we build the program more and more, you'll start to see more recipes on your menu that feature local products for our school programs.
So if you haven't tried the taco meat at high school, it's primarily Fisher Farms. It's delicious. And we're actually serving tacos on Monday at elementary, and that's gonna be Fisher Farms ground beef too.
Our kids love these waffles, like with the fruit chutney on top. I heard a lot of kids.
And they were like, I don't want that. And I'm like, you're gonna try it. You're gonna try it. I promise you're gonna like it. And I walked around to the tables and talked to the kids and I'm like, just try it. I even bribed a kid and I was like, look, I'll give you $1. Because his whole table wasn't into it. And then he was like, okay, I'll bite, you know, and I got him a quarter and then his teacher came back later and was like, I'm gonna give him a sucker in front of the whole class. Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Discussion items. We've got policy 318, random drug testing, and bus policy changes.
Yes, so policy 318, I'm not going to display anything. This is linked into your guys' November folder, as well as the agenda here. Without getting too in-depth with it, essentially, we're getting new samples for random drug testing. It's going to be a swab sample rather than a urine sample. So essentially, in that policy, we've taken everything out that has to do with urine samples, urinalysis, and then we've replaced it with the oral swabs. And so that'll be on the agenda to be approved next month, if you want to look that over before.
So what was the reasoning behind that cost?
That was part of it, but then also too, looking at the difference between oral swabs and the urine one, the collecting the samples much less invasive. But then also too, it gives us a much more clear picture at the moment in time. So if you, with a urine sample, it's more over a long period of time, so we weren't able to exactly pinpoint when consumption may have occurred. This let us see within a few hours of when it comes back with a positive test, which they then confirm it in the lab too, that in fact that they had used within that day, within a short period of time. So,
Additionally, the company we were using before is no longer doing that. So we had to look at, obviously we still wanted to have it in our policy and still do it.
Yeah.
So it gave us an opportunity to look at more current options that we had up there. And
We looked into using the same company that does our bus drivers, but this company, and honestly, with the oral swab, is gonna be even cheaper than what they were able to offer us, so.
And then bus policy changes. We work a lot on safety. We've invested a lot. We've increased the number of SROs. We put in threat alarm systems and all kinds of things. And it's a great focus on campus. But if we cannot get our students to school safely and home safely, then we've let the ball drop. So we're working on that. While most of our students ride the buses and follow the rules and do not distract the drivers and things like that, sometimes that's not always the case. And it seems that many times those offenders who are causing issues on the bus are the same ones over and over. And in our student handbooks, we have like the transportation rules, and really students were getting chance after chance after chance, and behaviors for some weren't changing. And we've decided, there's a bus driver shortage. This makes it more challenging to hire and retain bus drivers when they have to deal with the same concerns over and over. And as I said, a lot of times it's from those same few people that are making the ride unsafe for everyone else's child. And we want to come down on that a little harder to keep our students safe. And with that, there's not going to be as many chances. I will be meeting with bus drivers tomorrow, and then we will be informing parents moving forward. The first step is going to be a warning, and the parent will be notified by the transportation director or the bus driver if the bus driver prefers to call himself. And that's one warning, and that's the only warning, because then if that same child gets in trouble on the bus again, they will be suspended from the bus for 10 days. And after that 10 days, if they come back on the bus and get in trouble again, then they are off the bus for the remainder of the semester. We are not going to let a handful of students make it unsafe to transport our students on a daily basis. So this change will be going into effect in our student handbooks, and school board policy does allow for us to make changes in school handbooks when needed throughout the year. And I think that some of the behaviors we've seen this year on the buses have really given us reason to make this change at this time.
Statements from the superintendent.
First of all, I too want to thank all that were involved in our Veterans Day program, and I also want to thank all of our veterans. In fact, the speaker at the Veterans is one of our SROs, and we are very thankful for him and for all who were able to be celebrated last week. Secondly, I just want to say the AP TIP program, I'm so glad that we have it here and what it's been doing for our students and our staff that teach those AP classes. And I just want to say that one of the Notre Dame mentors that work with our AP TIP program did her student teaching in my classroom. So I'm very excited about that too. I share with the board whenever we get the honors, the exemplary behavior reports and things like that. And I know it is a focus of this board and me and many in this district of that Mustang pride. And so I just want to highlight some of the honors that we have had so far this year. You have heard them in other board meetings, some tonight, but I'm just going to give some overall things so far in the fall for football. We had an exemplary behavior report on August 16th. Well, actually, we had two of them. Herb King was named Coach of the Week in our football. In our volleyball, on September 14th, there was an exemplary behavior report for our volleyball team. IHS VCA Volleyball Academic All-State Gold Level, Riley Simcoe, Josie Harshberger. Riley Simcoe also got 1,000 career digs. And all by county, Riley Simcoe and Savannah Bowers. Our boys cross country, all by county, Lucas Kirkpatrick and Brandon Pigg. The girls cross country, regional qualifiers included Rayleigh Akers, Brayleigh Hoagland, and all by county, Rayleigh Akers. Boys tennis, all WRC, Gabe McCollum and Skylar Hoagland. All by county, Gabe McCollum, Levi McTaggart, and Levi Miller. Skylar Hoagland was the first recipient of the Terry Field WRC Sportsmanship Award. And in girls golf, we had two that were in all WRC, Autumn Payne and Bella Bacon. And then all by county, Autumn Payne also received that. So again, I love to celebrate our students and the honors that they're receiving. And I appreciate getting those updates on a regular basis from our athletic director. I want to remind everyone that our December meeting has been moved to the third Thursday, which is December 19th. And that is because the second Thursday happens to be the night of the elementary school holiday program. And I hope that now that you're free from a meeting on that night, that many of you can come and enjoy that, because I tell you, it's a treat that I look forward to every year, and you will enjoy it, getting to see those kiddos if they're just singing their hearts out. So, so those changes are coming up, and but thank you to all that were here tonight, and a big thanks to Aramark. We just had to make a decision on who was going to have our food service. You just gave the contract to them again earlier this year, and they're just doing great things, and it just keeps getting better and better. So thank you, Aramark. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Statements or concerns from the board?
I'm gonna say, I want to offer congratulations. Herb King got his 200th win this year as a varsity football coach. That's a big thing for a varsity coach to get 200 wins, especially mostly small schools like Herb's been at, right? So that just kind of shows the kind of coach he is. He gets wins, he builds programs, and that's why we have him here. I think it's pretty awesome that, we had a volleyball award with Riley Simcoe and 1,000 digs. From what I understand, we've never had anybody at our school do that, so that's a huge thing. But along with what has been said about our sportsmanship and our respectful kids and the programs, everybody notices that, and it's something that we all should be very, very proud of. The sportsmanship of our athletes is always noted. We hardly ever hear anything bad from other schools and other coaches. It's always good. And, at this day and age, that is something to be very, very proud of. And that goes back to our administrators, our staff, the students themselves, and the coaches, that they're demanding that and setting our kids up to be employable adults by teaching them those things, and that's very commendable. I want to touch on the whole Skylar Hoagland Terry Fields Award. Just so everybody understands, that is something that our coaches could nominate him for. It had to be nominated by one of the other conference coaches, and they actually had 2 conference coaches that nominated him. So that says a lot for Skylar and Chris Webb and that tennis program, and how they've excelled over the years and been somebody to contend with year after year. I mean, they graduate 5 or 6 kids off the varsity, and the very next year they're right in contention for conference in Bi-County, and it's something to be proud of. As most of our programs in our school, I've told Mrs. Brown several times, and I don't know if I've told Mrs. Perkins enough, but the band and choir is just incredible turnaround from the last 5 years. Those 2 programs, at the Veterans Day program, we're sitting there listening to them thinking, man, that is awesome compared to what it has been. So kudos to them. And then I had the opportunity to stop by the Building Trades house the other day to walk through and talk to Adam, and man, that is coming along, and they build some nice houses, which goes to say that, they sell pretty quickly. And I think it's incredible that we've been able to rejuvenate that program from what it used to be to where it is now. And hopefully we get it to where it's like a self-sustaining program, to where we're buying property and building houses, and that offers up housing for community members to bring in new people to the school district, to our community. And I think it's an excellent program. So I hope we can keep those kind of vocational programs going. I feel like our welding program's always been one to be kind of modeled after from several different areas. But, I think the building program's getting right to that point where people are looking at our building trades program and thinking, man, I wish we could have that in our area. So just a lot of things to be proud of at this school. And a lot of it goes back to you all in this room, and all the other teachers, staff, and administrators. So we thank you all for what you guys do. It makes our job a lot easier to have you folks on our team.
For sure, and I would echo what Dr. Grimes already said about the Veterans Day program. I mean, I think that's every year I usually plan on taking a vacation day that day and know that it's going to be spent, at the school in the morning. And really, it's kind of one of the highlights of the year, I think, as far as what we offer here. And so kudos to everybody involved in that and just keeping that going. I think it's a great thing. So.
Congratulations to all the students that received an award at the academic awards. That was a couple weeks ago. That's a great thing to recognize those students that had all A's. And so I think you might have gotten one. I might have seen you guys there maybe. So congratulations to you. So thanks to all that took the time to put that on.
And I got one more thing. I think the new letter honor jackets are awesome looking.
Oh, yeah.
I think those are
Sure.
why we somebody hadn't thought about doing that before, but those look awesome. I think
Sure.
it models our colors a lot better than the old ones did. So I think.
You still look good.
Yeah, the old ones
This
still
is
look
Bryson's anyways.
The old ones still look good.
Yeah.
You wear it better.
I think the new ones just look so sharp. They just really pop.
I wanted to say I'm excited for goodies for grands tomorrow and next week, so I get to go to both. I've been able to go fortunate enough to go the last few years too. And then this year, I got the pleasure of going to an area school last month with my granddaughter. And I just want to say, as enjoyable as it was, it gave me an even greater appreciation of what y'all do here both days and separating everybody out and what effort it takes for all the staff before, during, after to get it all done. And it's a really great thing, and thank you.
We're excited.
And again, thanks for Aramark for being here. Really
Yes.
enjoyed
Thank you,
what
guys.
you guys did this evening.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to do that,
Yeah.
bring it on.
You can bring us food any meeting you want to.
If there's nothing else, got anything? All right. We'll have document signing and adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
Motion. Or vote, I should say. Sorry.
7:29.